on Pucks Across Borders, Sports Addict Live, and Total Apex Sports, brought to you by the one, the only First Round Collectibles. Right now, with our promo code Sports Addict, get 10% off whatever sports card you want on the entire First Round Collectibles store. What's your favorite sport? Hockey, football, basketball, baseball, maybe wrestling, maybe even boxing. Whatever it is, you can get it at firstroundcollectibles.com. Use our promo code Sports Addict for 10% off whatever card you want. That's promo code Sports Addict for 10% off. Go to firstcollectibles.com. That number one, STRoundcollectibles.com. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans.
Yeah. Let's go. We just gotta go hard. I go the hardest. I bring the pain. Not what you used to. It's all part of the game. Yeah, I just gotta go hard. I just gotta go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And welcome to Pucks Across Borders full team betting preview, starting with the Atlantic Division on Total Apex Sports and Sports Addict Live. Good to be here as always. I am Mark Sauter. Cannot wait to get the hockey season rolling. Andre, as always, is with me. And Andre, first of all, how you doing? Second of all, isn't it hilarious how you can't wait? Preseason started. You'll watch anything, doesn't matter. And now we're heading into game 3 of most teams' preseasons tonight. And I'm ready for it to be done. Like, I'm ready, you know?
Yeah, once I saw Artemi Panarin, leave the game against the Islanders, I was kind of like, scrap the preseason. Let's get this over with. It's, hockey. Screw this, man. I'm doing pretty well, though. Cannot complain. Excited to be talking some puck. Excited for some real hockey. Just a quick message out there before we jump into it, though. If you know an Oakland Athletics fan today, please hug them, show them text, whatever. And to John Fisher, screw you. Sell the team. Find a purpose in life and leave baseball alone. That's all. Anyway, I'm ready for hockey now.
Is today the last home game? Is that today or tomorrow?
It's right now, actually. They're in the 7th inning.
Yeah, I saw, you've probably seen it too. It went viral. Oakland newscaster just going nuts, losing his mind the other night. It's so ridiculous, man. It's so stupid. Maybe we'll do a whole separate podcast talking about how stupid moving. I just we'll call it. Well, I was going to say we'll call it balls across borders, but that's a bit offside. We'll stick with pucks. We'll call it something else. We're getting started. Sad. So listen, man, before we jump in, we are going to do betting previews, over-unders, odds to win the cup and division and all that good stuff. But listen, you talked about Panarin. Let's just do it. First and foremost, we're fans. Yes, we love the sport. Yes, we are objective as humanly possible. But first and foremost, we're fans. We have favorite teams, and we're all about it. So far this preseason, we're a week and a half away from NHL hockey, or about 2 weeks, I guess, away. Where are you at with your Rangers, man? How do you feel about the preseason? How are we feeling?
I mean, I don't really take much in the preseason. I feel fine about the team. It was a very weird offseason for a lot of different reasons, and I think between the Panarin lingering injuries, against the Islanders, not getting any better. I know they said they'd offer Igor north of $10.5 million per year. We talked about how that's coming up, and they got to get him locked up ASAP. They can't let him test the free market, but I feel pretty good about the team. I think the regular season is going to be a good one. If it's not, we're going to have a lot of grieving to do on this show. But if it is, I'll be worried about the playoffs, and that's a good kind of stress to have. So I think the talent's still there. I think they'll be fine. They'll shake off the wonky offseason, hopefully get across the finish line. But knowing that team, they'll get painfully close, dragged by the goaltender, and then fall flat on their face. So that's where I'm at.
Oh man, I know the feeling. Well, you know what? From the Toronto perspective, it's been fun, man. There's lots to talk about in Toronto always. I'm sure the New York market is very similar, but you know, we don't talk about things like will Austin Matthews score 65 goals. We talk about you know, will the who's the seventh defenseman for the Leafs and who will be the third goalie. Those are the things that really matter up here. But hey, before we talk about nonsense any further, let's just dive right in with the Atlantic full betting preview. We'll do at obviously division by division. We figured we'll do 8 teams at a time rather than talk to you guys for 2.5 hours. Although I must say, our last episode was about an hour and 45 minutes long, and everybody that watched that live stayed on for the whole thing. So either you just had it on your computer and you just walked away and let it run, or you actually find us entertaining. So we appreciate you. Also, shout out to Total Apex Sports. We appreciate you guys as well. Full betting preview or full team previews for the for every or all 32 teams will be on Total Apex Sports over the next week and a half or so. So please go check that out. All right. Starting first, they earned it. They deserved it. They're just the defending Eastern Conference champions, defending Atlantic Division champions, and defending Stanley Cup champions, the Florida Panthers. Florida Panthers were 52-24-6 last year, 110 points, won the division, and of course won the Stanley Cup. To win the Stanley Cup this year, plus 1,000. To win the division, plus 235. To win the conference, plus 550. Their over-under in points total is 102.5. And like I said, they had 110 points last year. And to make the playoffs, minus 500. To miss the playoffs, plus 370. I had one more thing pulled up here to add. In Nate Schmidt, Adam Boykvist, Jesper Boykvist, Thomas Nosek, and AJ Greer. Out Brandon Montour, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Vladimir Tarasenko, Nick Cousins, Ryan Lomberg, Kevin Stinland, Josh Murrah, and Anthony Stolars. Let's start with you, Andre. How are we feeling about the Florida Panthers? What bets do you like? What do you not like? And it doesn't have to be just what's on the screen. What stands out to you about betting the Florida Panthers in this 24-25 season?
Yeah, well, just right off the bat, got a perfectly timed comment from Jordan. Miss you, man. America, or Canada versus the field is how they put it on DraftKings. The field, that being America, USA, greatest country on the earth, minus 340 to win the Stanley Cup as an American team. So keep the streak alive. We have great
What
odds.
was that odds? What was the odds?
Minus 340. They have no faith in your country.
No, of course.
None. So if you want to hop on that minus 340, Jordan, throw a quick K on it, be my guess. I think it's a lock, honestly. The rest of the world thinks it's a lock.
Jordan, he's not betting anything less than 1,000 on anything.
Oh, no. Especially not something like that.
Oh, yeah.
As for the Panthers, no repeat. I'll get it off the bat right now. And I'm not one of those people that hates success, that hates repeats. I actually applaud repeat. The goal of sports is to win.
Yeah, me too.
At what you do, kudos. I'm not going to hate you for that. You're doing what you're supposed to do. I'm going to be mad at my team for not being better. Bottom line. So that being said, I think they're going to be deep into the playoffs. To make the playoffs odds aren't really worthwhile for them. Division winner, I'd say it's likely. I'd say it's probable. I know they're plus 235, same odds as the Leafs. We're going to get to your boys in a sec. No offense, Mark. I think your boys are second fiddle in the division. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say either. And I think you guys are going to be better than last year. But I still think the Panthers are better. So that plus 235 to win the division, love it. Over 100, 2.5 points. If you think they're going to win the division, you kind of got to lock that in too. That's minus 115. I think we had it. So I think those, if you're looking at season-long bets for them, I think those are both over, or I guess for the division, it'll be yes. To win the East, I think I'm going to lean no. I can see them getting back to the conference finals, but that's a lot of hockey. That's a lot of, high-intensity hockey, especially the way they play. Teams are going to be gunning for them even more this year. And they've won the East 2 years in a row. It's not happening 3 years in a row. So division winners, yes. Points over. Win the East, win the Stanley Cup. That's a no for me, dog. And if you're looking at special bets, Sam Reinhart, 40-plus regular season goals is minus 120. I know he had 57 last year. You're not going to get 57 from him again. I think you can get 40 from him.
17 less.
Yeah, great team around him. He had 33 his first year as a Panther, 31 the second. So, you can assume 30 plus, get to 40 a year after he almost had 60. Seems like a good bet to me. I like that one.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at with the Panthers this year. It's not much to say about a good team, really.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, my apologies. I said that they won the East. They did not. They won the East as in they got to the Stanley Cup Finals, but the Rangers won the East in the regular season. Clearly, since they were the President's Trophy winners. Yeah, I mean, listen, man. Like, if you're just talking betting for the Panthers to win the Stanley Cup, if you're betting right, like if you're just a fan, you're having fun, you put $20 or $100 on like your team to win it. But if you're like gambling straight, you're gonna put multiple cup bets out there, and it's not a bad one to do it, right? Like $10 on plus 100 or whatever you want to do for the Panthers to win the Stanley Cup. The interesting thing for the East, which like this bet is who comes out of the East to go to the Cup final. That's basically what you're betting here. If you bet the conference is who's going to be in a Stanley Cup final. I don't hate that bet at plus 550. I do think same thing as last year, right? Something about the way that Panthers team plays, they just outlast you. And so if you're not too sure about the Stanley Cup, plus 550 to at least get to the Cup final. I do like that bet. To win the division, this is where I'm interested in the regular season because, in the playoffs, anything can happen. They get to the playoffs. I like both those bets, win the Cup, get like to the final. The division I find interesting because they didn't necessarily get worse on paper, but they didn't really get better. Like they lost the best backup goaltender in the league. Now Bobrovsky plays like 65 games, so how much is that going to matter? But they lost Montour, huge piece on that defense. They lost Tarasenko, who isn't, lighting it up for them by any means, but he's getting you 21, 22, 23 goals. He was something there the last couple years. So the division, I'm going to say no. I would rather bet them in a cup capacity rather than to win the division because also they've played a lot of hockey the last 2 years. So, how much the regular season, maybe we see them kind of pull a Vegas a little bit, and just kind of coast a little bit and just get to the playoffs. Points, 102.5. They had 110 points last year. So if you're betting the under, you're saying 5 less wins, or actually 4 less wins last year, or this year than last year. I personally wouldn't make that bet. I really do like the East plus 550, but if you're gonna pick a total, I would pick the over. And yeah, to make the playoffs. I mean, at minus 500, you're leaving that one alone. If you hate Florida and you want to be spiteful, then take the plus 370 to miss the playoffs. But that's a bet that you leave alone.
It's aimed at all Lightning fans. That plus 370.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. All right, moving on to the Boston Bruins. Boston Bruins last year, 47, 20, and 15, 109 points. Their total at the beginning of the year was 99.5, and I bet the under because I was like, you're losing, Krejci, and you're losing Bergeron. How is this team? And they just always get 105 points, and they always find a way to get things done. And betting on this team future wise in a negative capacity is a little bit scary for me. Over the summer, they brought in Elias Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov, Max Jones, Riley Tufte, Jonas Korpisalo, Mark Kastelik, out Linus Allmark, Shattenkirk, Grzelcyk, Jake DeBrusk, Milan Lucic. He wasn't there that much last year anyway. Danton, Heinen, and James Van Riemsdyk, all those players are out. To win the Stanley Cup, plus 1,800. To win the East, to get to the final, is plus 900. To win the division is plus 500 points. 99.5 is their total. To make the playoffs, minus 240, and to miss the playoffs, plus 195. I would love to bring myself to take that miss playoffs bet. That is at plus 195. Andre, what do you got betting on the Boston Bruins heading into 24-25?
Yeah, that missed the playoffs is spicy because, I don't know if you remember our Atlantic preview. I don't think any of us had them in the top 3 for the division.
I don't think so.
I had them fourth personally. I think I had them sneaking into the wild card in the end. But even that's not a given because, I could see 2 Metro teams being better than this Bruins team. And it all boils down to they might have fumbled an all-time great goaltending duo. Obviously, they traded one of them, Ullmark, to Ottawa. Swayman, not paid yet. You have to imagine at some point they're just going to throw a blank check his way and get it done. Because if they don't, they're going to look a lot like Tampa at the beginning of last year. And Tampa at the beginning of last year was a train wreck. Granted, Vasilevsky was hurt. This is a different situation. But I think the results would be similar if you're not getting a happy Swayman. Or if you're not getting Swayman at all. Who's to say? Maybe holdouts are coming to the NHL. That's the bottom line for this team. That's not even a knock on Korpisalo, who would probably take up most of the starts if anything were to happen to Swayman. He's a fine goalie. He is not Jeremy Swayman. He's not Linus Ullmark. So, they don't have that every night. You have to be at your best offensively threat. And that's huge for them because it got them so far the past few years, even if they didn't win it all. It got them a President's Trophy, it got them playoff series wins. So if you're looking at this team down the road, the playoffs aren't a lock anymore, at least in my opinion. They've made a lot of moves to try to make the roster younger, but still competitive, kind of thin still at some of those forward spots. I'm not really buying into this Bruins team at all. Scratch the division, 100% not happening. Scratch the East, 100% not happening. Stanley Cup, if you live in New England and you're bored, go for it. TD Garden's a very nice place. Love the sound system there. They're not winning the Stanley Cup. Points, I have them under. If I have them a wild card team, I have them like 97, 95-ish range. Where I have them, so I think I'd go under on the points. Now, could they get 100? Could you get, if you get 65 games out of Swayman, he's at his best the entire time, Vezina campaign, easily. I don't see that happening. Just everything going on with that team right now, I don't see it happening. So I'm taking the under on the points. I don't think I would take the missed playoffs personally, but it's tempting.
Yeah, I think missing playoffs at plus 195 is worth a sprinkle for sure. At least just a little touch, just something to have on it. I'm with you. I don't love winning the division. I it's another one of those teams where a Stanley Cup or East, I can see a world, and obviously it's September, right? So who knows how this looks in 6-7 months from now, but I can see a world where they get into the playoffs, Swayman is out of his mind, and they find a way to grind it out and get to the Cup final. This is pretty much the exact same total points wise as it was last September. I took the under. I'm really curious to see, because I agree with you. The forward group is incredibly thin. I don't like. I'm looking at the depth chart right now. Zaka, Lindholm, Pasternak, Marchand, Coyle, Geeky. After that, Frederick's good player, but after that, it's an incredibly thin bottom six in that forward unit. And then you also mentioned Jeremy Swayman. There are reports, now I clearly don't know, but there are reports that this could last a long time, that they're far off and this could last a long time. As a Toronto fan, I remember 2018 when William Nylander went all the way to December 1st deadline. And it was literally like the minute before the deadline, he finally signed a deal. And this kind of feels like that. Now, who knows? Obviously, the season starts in about 2 weeks, so it may not happen that way. But I'm with you, man. Like the first few months of the season, Korpisalo, if he's playing 25, 30, 35 games a year, you're fine with it, but you don't want him playing for you every single night. Now, a couple of years ago with the Kings, he had a phenomenal year, but he hasn't really had that before or since that year with Los Angeles. So I don't trust it. Now, the one thing that's keeping me from betting anything negative on the Boston Bruins, their decor may be one of the best in the National Hockey League, at least the divisions. Zadorov, McAvoy, Lindholm, Carlo, Lowry, and Peaky. Like, that's a solid top six. So at least top four, at least. Those are all like Zadorov, McAvoy, Lindholm, Carlo. Like, that is a phenomenal top four. So their defense should be on paper really good still. Forward wise, where are those goals coming from? Marchand might not even start the year. He had 3 surgeries this summer. He's one of the toughest players in the league. I love Marchand. I'm bummed out that he's not licking people anymore. That was one of the funniest things like going in sports. But and it wasn't me that he was licking, so it was funny. But 3 surgeries, he's what, mid-30s, 34, 35? That's a lot. So if he doesn't start the season, you're already super thin on your forward roster. You're losing him for how long? That's a tough way to go. So I'm not making any of these bets. I'm going to think about the playoffs at plus 195. And I mean, like I said, once you get there, if everything kind of falls their way, this is just one of those teams, man. They just never get less than 100 points. They just never do. They always find a way. And so we will see what happens. All right, moving on to the moment I know you've all have been waiting. Yeah, go ahead.
Real quick.
No, good.
Just I know you're very excited. I didn't want to cut you off there, but to build off your Marchand point, Pasternak to lead the league in shots on goal is plus 310. Pretty good odds. I know he was second to McKinnon last year, so he's going to get the shots up.
I
without
love that
Marshawn
bet.
Mike.
That was one of
So
our
I thought I'd throw that out there.
favorite props all year long was past the shots. Every night, 5, 6, 7, sometimes like 11 shots on net. Plus 310, you said? Yeah, I love that. That's a great bet. All right,
Plus
moving on to the, like I said, the moment you've all been waiting for, the Toronto Maple Leafs preseason action against Montreal tonight. I know you all will have it PVR'd, so when the football game is over, you're going to go right to watching some preseason action between Toronto and Montreal. Last year, the Toronto Maple Leafs 46, 26, and 10, 102 points. To win the Stanley Cup this year, plus 1,300. To win the Eastern Conference, plus 600. To win the division, plus 270. Points over under a 102.5. To make the playoffs, minus 475. To miss the playoffs, plus 350. In Chris Tanev, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Philip Myers, and Anthony Stolarz, players out. Oh, and Yanni Hakanpää as well. We'll see how his health is throughout the rest of the preseason. Players out: Tyler Bertuzzi, Noah Gregor, Ilya Samsonov, Martin Jones, TJ Brody, Labushkin, John Klingberg, and Joel Edmondson. We all know that I could talk about this for an hour, so Andre, we'll start with you, man. What do you see for the Toronto Maple Leafs going into 24-25 season?
Yeah, that points total right off the bat, I'm thinking, they were at 102 last year. I think this is a 105 point team, maybe a little more, like 105 to 108-ish. And it really starts with goaltending. Joseph Wall, hopefully a full year of him. And then Stolarz behind him. You know, I'm not going to pretend like it's the best tandem or even starter in the division or in the conference, but it's a lot better than what the Leafs dealt with last year. Instantly, I think that makes them a better team. I think this is, looking at this division, the only other good team in the division, honestly. So I said the Panthers were going to win. I think the Leafs are second. If you want to sprinkle them plus 270 on the division, it's not a bad bet because, like Mark said, a lot of hockey for the Panthers the past 2 years. 2 runs to the Stanley Cup. They might come out tired. They might not come out focused now that they've had that parade. They've had that hangover, whatever. The Leafs are in, I think, one of their best spots in a long time. And I know you probably hear that every offseason, Mark, but I think it's real this time. So over on the points, playoffs are a lock. I'm not even going to waste my time on that. Division, I think you could sprinkle on. Eastern Conference, I think you can sprinkle on. Cup might be going a little too far, but I mean, there's a lot to like about this team. I think new coaching too should help defensively. That's kind of what Berube is known to bring to the table. I think this is, the goaltending still not perfect, but I think overall this is good enough to be a good run. And just real quick before I hand you the reins, do you know how many hat tricks Austin Matthews had last year?
It was a lot. I do not remember the exact number, no.
It was 6. He had 3 before Thanksgiving. He had 3 after the first week of November. To get 3+ hat tricks this year, the best goal scorer in the world, Austin Matthews, minus 115. No, I was asking him to score a lot, but you see the way this guy scores. That seems pretty good deal.
3 hat tricks? Of course he'll get that.
He had that by November 4th last year.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that bet. Minus 115. That's a big conversation too, right? Like how many, like I remember a couple years ago, Austin Matthews had 40 goals and it was like that was his total for the year. He hit 40 goals. And what's wrong with Austin Matthews? Have we seen the best? It's like the guy scored 40 goals. Like if he scores less than 50, it's a down year. Like that's how he's on pace this year. I think I'm not going to get this right. It's like 47 or 52 or something goals away from breaking Matt Sundin's all-time Toronto goal scoring record, which is really cool. Matt Sundin was talking about it to the media the other day. Yeah, so listen, this is the thing. To win the Stanley Cup plus 1,300, I'm going to do it because why not? You never know. If the Leafs are going to win the Stanley Cup, I got to make some money on it because it'll never happen ever again. So I might as well bet on it. To get to the Cup final plus 600, the problem with talking to me about the Toronto Maple Leafs and like listening to Toronto radio, either station or Toronto media, the problem with it is the regular season is irrelevant. So to win the division plus 270, I love it. Over points 102.5. I actually do think the Leafs are going to win the division this year. To make the playoffs, minus 475 obviously is expensive and it isn't worth it, but that is the right bet. This is the thing. The Toronto Maple Leafs, whatever they do in the regular season is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. They have one playoff win since I was like 14 years old. Like the playoffs is all that matters. So when you're talking about a season preview, that's why this show is great, because this show is not a Toronto Maple Leaf show. But if it was a Toronto Maple Leaf show, everything that we would say would have the caveat of, but it's just the regular season. It's just the regular season. It doesn't matter. This is my personal opinion. I know that the Florida Panthers 2 years ago squeaked into the playoffs as the 8th seed and ended up going all the way to the Cup final. I think winning the division for the Toronto Maple Leafs is really important. Really, really important. They lost to the Boston Bruins. On paper, they should have won that series. I thought for the last 4 games or whatever, they outplayed Boston for a lot of that series. And we talked about this last year in the playoffs, that I didn't think that Boston outplayed Toronto as much as Toronto just sucked and just did not play well. So for me, taking them to win the division plus 270, I think it would really, really bode well for them if they win the division and they don't have to play Boston or Tampa or Florida in the first round of the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like, if they can win the division, and no disrespect to these teams, but if they can win the division and play Detroit, Buffalo, Ottawa, Montreal, maybe, that's like, they got to do it. They got to stop putting themselves in these positions where, congratulations, you have 102 points. You get to play the Boston Bruins. Like, they need to stop putting themselves in this position. So I think winning the division is really important. Plus 270. I'm going to take it. I'm going to bet it all as a fan. I'm betting Stanley Cup. I'm betting Eastern Conference. I don't think they make it to the Cup final. I just think once you get to the playoffs, teams like Florida, teams like the Rangers, although I will say in years past, I feel like you had to get past the Rangers, the Panthers, the Hurricanes, the Bruins, the Lightning. And I really do think that the Rangers and the Panthers are the two that really stand in your way this year. We talked about Boston. I think the Leafs on paper are a better team than Boston. I think they're a better team than Tampa Bay. I think Carolina is, due to take a huge step back this year. So it's not as daunting as in past years to get through to the Cup final. But I do think Florida and Rangers are still both the creme de la creme of the Eastern Conference. But I'll sprinkle a little bit on plus 600. Why not? But I really, really do like the division at plus 270. All right, moving on. Tampa Bay Lightning. Last year, Tampa Bay Lightning 45, 29, and 8. They had 98 points last year in the were they the last They were the last wild card spot, weren't they?
No, it was the Capitals. Remember?
Oh, right. Because the Rangers, yeah, right.
Well,
Right.
nobody wanted that last spot. Tampa kind of got the first wild card by default.
Yeah. No, that's right. To win the Stanley Cup, plus 2,500, which has to be, I don't remember last year, but this has to be the longest odds in a while. Plus 2,500. It has to be. I would assume last year was high thousands, right? 17, 18, something like that. Plus 2,500 to win the cup. To win the East, to make it to the Cup final, plus 1,200. To win the division, plus 550 points. The total is 98.5. Like I said, they had 98 on the nose last year. To make it to the playoffs, minus 230. To miss the playoffs, plus 185. Players in: Jake Gensel, Cam Atkinson, Ryan McDonough, and players you've never heard of. Players out: Steven Stamkos, Anthony Duclair, Tyler Motte, Philip Myers, Matt Dumba, and Calvin DeHaan. Andre, what are you feeling? Tampa Bay Lightning, 24-25 season.
Missed the playoffs, plus 185. I'm taking flat out. I'm taking it. This team, it's tricky, but this team doesn't have enough depth for me. They're one or two injuries away from just completely cratering. And we saw last year, Vasilevsky, not 100% till very late. Gensel, he's been banged up before. Victor Hedman's been banged up before. Ryan McDonough, love the guy, not getting any younger. There's concerns here for me. I think looking at this division, or I guess looking at the East Conference as a whole, if you're talking about the playoffs, wild card potential, again, I think they fall short this time. I think the teams around them are stiffer. I'm actually going to take that plus 185 on the Lightning missing the playoffs. And to match it, you're talking about the points, basically put them at the century mark. No shot. I'm taking the under on 98.5 points. The good news for this team is that their strengths are some of the best strengths in the league. Kucherov could have been the Hart Trophy winner last year. There's a bet on him to lead the league in power play points. That's plus 500. He did it last year. The only person close was Nathan McKinnon. Kind of weird. I've said his name twice. He's in a different conference, but Kucherov had a 5-point cushion on him. He had 53 power play points last year. No Stamkos. Swapped Gensel in for him. I think it's going to help him, honestly, rack up more. And I think most of their scoring is going to have to come from a power play that's been elite for years now. He's the guy that drives that. Kucherov, talk about Kucherov, talk about Vasilevsky, Braden Point, Victor Hedman, whatever. Good enough to make this team a nightmare for anybody, but between health and the depth behind that, I'm not buying it this year. So I'm not even going to consider Stanley Cup or the East or the division. I'm just going to under on the points, no playoffs.
Yeah, I like the under on the points as well. 98.5. Here's the thing. I don't think they can win the division. I don't think they can win the East. I don't think they can win the Cup. I said with Boston, like, I can see a world where if Boston just gets in, I guess that's applicable to Tampa Bay, but I'm just not feeling it the same way. Now, for Tampa to miss the playoffs, I agree with you in theory. I think the thing that scares me off from that bet, even though it is plus 185, it has nothing to do with Tampa Bay being good or nothing to do with their players. It's that the bottom half of this division is a crapshoot. Like, who's taking that last spot away from them? Like, you know what I mean? Like Detroit, Ottawa, Buffalo, all three of those teams have been on the cusp for like a decade. Like, I don't know who. Of course, on the other side in the Metro, and we're going to do their division preview in the next episode. But the Met, Washington is a better team. The Devils are a better team. Pittsburgh, Philly, they'll be in the mix. I don't know if they'll necessarily get in. So there are teams on the other side, but I think the rest of this division is just such a question mark that I'm not quite ready to say that the Lightning will miss the playoffs. I think what does scare me, though, is the same thing that we said again about the Boston Bruins. Like, you have Gensel, Point, Kucherov, Hagel, Cirelli, 5 dominant, top-notch hockey players. All 5 of those guys can score at any given time. After that, Cam Atkinson, good name, good player. They're taking a flyer on him, really. Like, the guy's making $900K this year, right? Like, Cam Atkinson, he's been hurt a lot, not the same player he was. After that, Paul, is it Nate Paul, Nick Paul, whatever it is, he's a cult villain here in Toronto because 2 years ago he broke our hearts and played better than any of our superstars. So there is some weird things with him. But other than that, with the bottom 6 on this Tampa Bay roster, like they got no depth at all. And when you have, that lack of depth on your starting lineup, to your point, if injuries happen, who's stepping in? You know what I mean? On the defensive end, they got good players. Cernak, McDonough's back, Hedman's back, Moser. They got, but after that top 4, their depth on the defensive end kind of tails off. And like you said, Vasilevsky, this is another one of these teams that if their goaltender does not play well for 2/3 of the season, they aren't really making it. You can lump Boston in there, although I like Boston more than I like Tampa Bay. Completely different conference. We'll talk about them on another show, but the St. Louis Blues, Binnington doesn't play out of his mind for the whole season, the Blues don't have a shot. Obviously, Tampa Bay is more talented than the Blues are, but there's a lot of pressure on Vasilevsky to reclaim his healthy form and take this team all the way to the playoffs. So I like the missed playoffs bet. I just don't really know who in the East is going to reach up and grab that spot from them. All right, moving on. The Detroit Red Wings. We're halfway through our Atlantic Division full team betting preview. I probably jumbled some of the words there, but that's fine. The Detroit Red Wings, 41-32-9 last year, 91 points. Lost back-to-back games against Montreal to miss the playoffs. They had that spot for the entire last half of the year and gave it away at the very end to the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, not to Montreal, but anyway, you know what I mean. Plus 4,000 to win the Stanley Cup. To make it to the finals is plus 2,000. To win the division, plus 1,200. Over 90.5 points to make the playoffs, plus 135. Now we're getting into plus money territory to make the playoffs. Plus 135 to miss the playoffs is minus 165. Players in. Give me a moment. Players in. Cam Talbot, Vladimir Tarasenko, Tyler Motte. Players out. Gostisbehere, Wallman, Perron, Sprong, and James Reimer. Andre, where are you at? Detroit Red Wings 24-25 season.
Yeah, I said the Bruins weren't going to be that third spot in the division. I said the Lightning weren't going to be the third spot in the division. That's because I believe the Detroit Red Wings are going to be the third spot in the division. Taking the over on the points, they had 91 points last year. I think they get 95 plus this year on their way to that third Atlantic spot. Obviously, if they're in that spot, that means they make the playoffs. I mean, they should have made the playoffs last year. They just absolutely forgot.
They puked all
How
over
many games were in a
themselves.
season?
Like, let's call it what it is. They puked all over themselves that last stretch. Oh,
especially March. I don't know. They just, February ended. They were like, "Yay, we made it," and then just shut it down. But in all seriousness, last year's team, you look at the weakness. It was goaltending, and the goalies weren't healthy. But that's not an excuse. The goalies were just flat out bad, and that was pretty much it. The power play was good. The scoring was excellent. That shouldn't change with the Brigitte, Larkin, Raymond, Senko, Kane, Comfer there. The PK was good. I think Tyler Mott. I love Motter. He's going to help that a lot. Just, defensively, I think they're solid enough.
Yeah.
The PK shows that because they're middle of the pack. It's the goaltending. Plain and simple. And Cam Talbot, he has it in him. Alex Line, he has it in him. Husso, he has it in him. One of those guys is going to step up. One of those guys is going to seize that job. One of those guys is going to make this Red Wings team a good team. Those are three goalies that have had success at the NHL level before. Maybe I'm a fool, but I'm convinced that one of them is going to realize the opportunity and play at their best. And it's going to take this team very far. I really like Detroit's odds this year. I don't think they're going to win the division. I wouldn't go that far, but to see them win the East, to be one of those surprise teams that makes a run, that wouldn't shock me, honestly. I think they have three goalies who are capable of getting hot in the playoffs. They definitely have the offense to compete with anybody. They did it all of last year. I'm high on this Red Wings team. They're making the playoffs. I'll lock it in right now. And as far as I didn't have anything special for them because I like the playoff odds. So I'm gonna retract.
Yeah, you're good. I'm with you. I think if you're making any bet here, you're taking over points and make the playoffs. I think the division. I know the odds are nice and juicy, but the division East to win the cup, I that's just too much. There's just too many teams. Because the thing is, man, is like. I get what you're saying about the goaltending, but when it comes time to the playoffs, who are you putting your faith in, right? We're talking Shesterkin, we're talking Bobrovsky, we're talking Swayman. Like, I don't see this team making noise once they get to the playoffs. But I like the over points. I like to make the playoffs. I'm much more skeptical of this goaltending, though, than you are. Like, I get what you're saying, and we talked about this the last episode we did, man, where after the Cup Finals, we did our way too early Atlantic Division power rankings, and I'm with you. I had Detroit in my top three, in third, I believe. That pick, though, might be the one that I'm questioning the most as we get into the regular season. The goaltending, Cam Talbot's a good goaltender. There's no doubt about it. He was Vezina caliber for the first half of the year in LA. Listen, Lions, good goaltender, cannot be overused. We saw that last year. If he's playing 20, 25, maybe 30 games, the guy's lights out, cannot be overused. He was also injured a bunch last year. Also, Husso, man, I really like Husso. I thought that him going to Detroit was a huge move last year. He was hurt for the majority of last year. So those two guys got to stay healthy. It's kind of the same with the Maple Leafs, man. Like between Stolars and between Joseph Woll, Cam Talbot's a really good goalie, but he cannot be relied on for more than 55 games. He just can't. So can Husso stay healthy? Can Lions stay healthy? And now that James Reimer's gone, you got Jack Campbell, who went to Edmonton, $5 million per year, and now is probably playing in Grand Rapids for the AHL. So I don't know what to think. That goaltending room is just super crowded, and it's just kind of a little bit concerning for me. Goal scoring wise, I do agree with you. I think losing Perron and losing Sprong, I'm saying those two names back to back trips me out. Perron and Sprong. It's weird, but not that those guys are, getting you 50 each, but that's a pretty big chunk of your offense going out the door. Tarasenko, he's a good player. He's probably not getting more than 25. We'll see. DeBrincat is a player that I'm really curious to see. Like, you remember last year, man, we were making money every night with that guy scoring goals, and he just fell off a cliff. So can he put a whole season together? Larkin, another guy, has to stay healthy. I don't know this. Somebody out there can do a quick, deep dive and put it in the chat. What was the Red Wings record with and without Dylan Larkin last year? Because I feel like when he was hurt and not playing, I feel like they lost at every game. Like, you remember down the stretch, man, that's also, not only did they puke on themselves down the stretch, but that was a big part of it too, was the fact that he was hurt and they just could not win without him. So we'll see what happens there. He has to stay healthy. But I do like the offense. I do think that the over is going to be the play with this team all year long. I think they're going to give up a good amount of goals, and I think they're going to score a lot of goals. So I like to make the playoffs at plus 135. I know that the odds are worse, but I like the over point total more. I like taking over 90.5 more than make the playoffs, because I do think that bottom half of the East in the playoffs is going to be more competitive than it was last year. I do think Washington is a better team. I think Philly, not necessarily better on paper, but they have one more year with Torts under their belt. They have that experience of falling off a cliff last year. I think Montreal is going to be better. I do think that 7-8 slot is going to be better. So over 90.5 points might still not get you to the playoffs. So that's where I'm at. I like the over 90.5 more, but I do like to make the playoffs at plus 135 as well. All right, moving on to the Buffalo Sabres. We're getting these next two teams are just, who knows what's going to happen. Buffalo Sabres last year, 39, 37, and 6, 84 points is what they finished with. Stanley Cup plus 5,000 to make it to the Cup final out of the East, plus 2,500 to win the division, plus 1,400 points, over 88.5. So 5 or more wins than they had last year. Points 88.5 to make the playoffs, plus 165 to miss the playoffs is minus 205. Additions: James Reimer, speaking of the devil, Jason Zucker, Ryan McLeod, Beck Malenstein, and Sam Lafferty. Players out: Victor Olofsson, Jeff Skinner, Tyson Yost, and Eric Comrie. Andre, where you at? Buffalo Sabres 24-25.
Yeah, so in theory, right,
Yeah.
if the Sabres grow like normal teams do, progress, do all those things, they'll get past that point total. They'll be better. Very easy call to just say, 90-point team. They were at 84 last year, blah, 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 blah. They did all these things to get better. The rebuild's going along smooth. But this is the Buffalo Sabres we're talking about. And for literal decades, I don't think I'm incorrect to say decades. It's probably been since like 2010. Yeah. We've seen this team just stumble backwards every time you think they're taking a step forward. It happens sometimes in season, and sometimes it happens in game. Definitely happens season 2 season. So I can't trust that franchise to get 90 points. I can trust them to be aggressively mediocre, lose to teams they're supposed to beat teams they're supposed to lose to, end up with 80, 81, 84. Yeah, it convinced me the Sabres are a 90-point team until I see it. And it's been about 15 years since we've seen this from this organization. Kind of harsh, but they've earned it at this point. The playoffs, no, minus 205 is not worth the odds. The points of going under, I just have to see some consistency. What I will say, though, about this team, or I guess one player, is Ukko Pekka Luukkonen. Love that kid. Came up late in October last year. Easily became the top goalie, went 27, 22, and 4, 910 save percentage, 257 goals against average. Full season of him this year, you would think. Hopefully he stays healthy. Over 25 and a half wins, minus 115. He did it last year, didn't play a full season. He should get most of the starts this year. He is a good goalie. So I like that prop for the Sabres team more than anything. If you think they're going to get over 90 points, it works. If you think they're going to be under like last year,
yeah,
it can still work.
I'm right there with you as far as I'm just scared. Like, I'm just scared. Like, the history speaks, right? Like, it's the same thing, to bring it back to my beloved Maple Leafs, man. Like, on paper, I think that the Maple Leafs are the best that they've been in the Matthews, Marner, Nylander era, but history speaks. And with Buffalo, it's the same thing, man. I'm not betting any futures on this team. I'm just not doing it. I do think, in theory, as much love as we want to give Detroit, I really do think like Ottawa, Buffalo, and Detroit are all mysteries. How good are these teams going to be? Is it going to be like last year, snail's race to win to win that, like, last wild card spot? I really don't know. I actually really like this Buffalo team if I'm just looking at the depth chart. Thompson, if he can stay healthy, Tage Thompson can get back to what he was. Peterka, Tuck, Benson, Cousins, Quinn. That's a fun top six. In the bottom six, I think their center position got much better, adding Ryan McLeod from the Oilers on the third line, adding Sam Lafferty. That bottom six, just with those two guys playing center ice on the third and fourth line, those two players, McLeod and Lafferty, are two of the fastest players in the National Hockey League. So that is going to be interesting to watch. Like this team did get a lot faster than it was last year. Greenway, Zucker, we love some Zucks, but like, what does he have left? It's hard to know, but we love Zucker, and we'll see what happens. Defensively, I do think if Owen Power can kind of get to that next level where we all expected him to be, Bowen Byram, that's a trade that we all forget about, sending Casey Middlestat to Colorado to get Bowen Byram from the Avalanche. He's a phenomenal defenseman. And so that is going to be interesting to get a full season of him. And Dahlin, the new captain, today, I believe, was named the captain of the Buffalo Sabres. Bryson, Clifton, it's a pretty good defensive unit. So I do think on paper the Buffalo Sabres are a better team, and I do think on paper they should eclipse 88.5 points, and they should at least make a push to get into the playoffs at plus 165. But they've missed the playoffs for 13 straight years, and this has been a team that's supposed to get over the hump year after year, exactly like you said, man. And the one thing I'm really curious about, I talked with a Buffalo Sabres writer today for Total Apex Sports, and he was like, what's the word? Adamant. That's the word, I believe. He was adamant that Lindy Ruff was the right hire, and it wasn't just nostalgia, and he's going to get the job done. I'll believe it when I see it. I don't really know. We'll see what happens with bringing Lindy Ruff back into the fold there. But yeah, Buffalo should get over 88 88.5 points, and they should make it to the playoffs or at least be close to it. But I can't put my money on this, man. I can't. I'm better off just playing the slot machines and see what happens. All right, moving on. 2 teams left. We're staying in Canada for both of them. Number 1, the Ottawa Senators. Ottawa Senators, talking about teams who the heck knows what's going to happen. Ottawa Senators last year, 37, 41, and 4, 78 points. To win the Stanley Cup is plus 4,000. To make it to the finals out of the East is plus 2,000. To win the division, plus 1,200. Their over-under points is 90.5. Like, what am I missing here? They had 78 points last year, and their over-under is 90.5. To make the playoffs, is that just getting Allmark? All of a sudden, you're going to get 12 more points? I don't know. 90.5 to make the playoffs is plus 125. To miss the playoffs is minus 155. Andre, where are you at with this 24-25 Ottawa Senators team? And quickly, I'll just add this too. I get what we're saying about Buffalo, and I agree with you, and clearly I agree with myself as well. But for Buffalo to be plus 165 and Ottawa to be plus 125, what am I missing?
I mean, a Vezina,
the goaltending.
Say they had this. That's really it. The thing about this team, the Senators, is what are they? You know, and there's no like, what are they? Like, are they an offensive juggernaut? They tried that last year, fell flat on their face. Are they now play? We're gonna, turtle. We're gonna park the bus in defensive hockey, 1-0, trap you, just make it a slugfest. We'll see. I guess that's what getting Allmark was for. I guess the new ownership is swinging for the fences, trying to instill some hope in the franchise internally and the fan base. I guess we're talking externally, but we've seen this dance before with this organization, right? I believe in Allmark. He's a fantastic goalie. There's not enough you can say about him as a player. Is he enough to single-handedly transform a franchise overnight? They were a train wreck last year. They weren't the worst team in the league, but they were it felt like it at times. They were a disaster last year. I think he brings stability. I'm not sure if he brings 91 points. If I were to bet their point total, I'm not betting their point total. I think I would bet the over, honestly, because I value goaltending that highly, and I think if he gets 60 starts for this team, they're 2/3 of the way there easy. Should be more, but
yeah.
So over 91, I would have to go with it, but I don't think it's a team that's going to make the playoffs. I don't think it's a team that's going to contend for anything seriously. They're just it's weird. I understand they were just so bad last year. The offense is going to take a step back. Are they even going to keep Brady Tkachuk? Like, that's still a thing, right? Like, he might get traded, he might not. Who knows? This is a weird line, but if you have a Vezina goalie and if he plays like a Vezina goalie, that's 90 points, right? You would think.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, man, they're building an arena soon, so they better keep Tkachuk because they gotta have somebody to bring those butts to the seat, man. The thing is, dude, is like, I get it. I do get it. And I think that the point total is put up this high, yes, because of Allmark. I also think it's just on purpose, man. Like, I just think it's like, if the point total was set realistically, because most of these point totals are within 2 or 3 points or less of the total that the team had last year, right? Or even half a point of what they had last year. So for it to be a full 12 and a half points more than they had last year, if it was set at 80, 84, 85, 86 and a half, then people would just hammer the over, right? So I do understand why it is this high. Listen, Kachuk, Stutzla, Giroux, Perron, Norris, Batherson. Norris needs to stay healthy. I don't know what you can trust. That kid's injured every year, and it sucks. He's a really good player, but he's injured all the time. Pinto, if he doesn't watch our show, if he stays off of our show and doesn't gamble, then he'll be with the team all next year, all this year. He's a really good young player. Pinto, we appreciate you watching, but just stick to cartoons or something. Watch something else. If he sticks around, man, like, he's a really good young player. On the defensive end, Sanderson, really good young player. Zub, Shabbat, Jensen. The goaltending, Forsberg, if Forsberg plays 20, 25 games a year, he's a pretty good backup. I like it on paper. I just can't. I feel like if you're going to bet, because I don't have it in front of me, I don't know if you have it right there, Andre, but like, I don't know. I'm assuming that over 90 and a half points is a minus number, around like minus 115, minus 120, something like that. I think I would rather bet make the playoffs than over 90 and a half, because I don't really know either of them. Like, I don't really trust either of them, so I might as well take the one with a bit, better odds and just kind of roll the dice. Do you have it there, what the over under 90 and a half is?
Yeah, it's minus 120.
It is minus 120. Okay, yeah. I think I would rather make the playoffs, just because I don't like that one either. So if I don't like both of them, I might as well take the one with plus odds, and we will see what happens. Also, I failed to mention at the beginning of the Ottawa segment, and of course I gotta pull this up again here. Where are we at? Yeah, they brought in Allmark, Jensen, Gregor, Perron, Nick Cousins, and they lost Kubalik, Kelly. So not a lot of change, but obviously Allmark is a massive change. All right, moving on to, and also, sorry, one more point to what you said about they weren't the worst team last year. True, but like, let's just put that in the proper narrative, okay? You had San Jose, Chicago, Columbus, and then Ottawa. Like, technically Montreal, who we're going to talk about next, technically Montreal finished with less points, but I watch all these games every night, and I'm telling you, Montreal was a much more competitive team than Ottawa was. So we'll see what happens. They also have a new coach too, right? Travis Green. So we'll see how much that matters. All right. The Montreal Canadiens. We'll probably do this segment before the season starts. What teams are you most excited to watch? Who is your NHL center ice team that you would spend the money to get every single NHL game just so you can watch this team? And for me, one of those teams is the Montreal Canadiens, man. I'm really excited about this team, and I can't wait to see what they can do as the season rolls along. Last year, 30 wins, 36 losses, 16 overtime loss. I don't know why I said it like that. 30, 36, and 16. 76 points to win the Stanley Cup is plus 12,000 to make it to the final out of the East. Plus 6,000 to win the division is plus 7,500. That's not right. No, that's not right. It's plus 750 to win the division. Not, I was going to say to win the division is crazier than to make it to the cup final. No, it's plus 750 to make it to the division or to win the division. They're over under for points of 76.5 to make the playoffs, or maybe it is plus 7,500. I'm confusing myself now. Maybe it is because to make it to the playoffs is plus 750. So yeah, to make it to win the division plus 7,500. That's wild. I typed these in and I just caught how outrageous that is now. Yeah, make the playoffs plus 750. To miss the playoffs is minus 1,400, which is super duper disrespectful, if I may say so myself. In short and sweet, Patrick Laine, he's in. We'll see what happens with it. Who's out? Tanner Pearson, Elias Anderson, and Colin White. Andre, let's finish up our Atlantic Division preview. I also want to give a nice big shout out to Andre. I suggested that we did that. We do the whole Eastern Conference today, and he said, Mark, that would be outrageously long, and we've already been doing this for over an hour, so shout out to you, Andre, for saving both of us and our viewers. And what do you think? Are you as excited as I am for the 24-25 Montreal Canadiens?
You know, people might think this is jest, but I am. We just talked about how the Senators weren't the worst team technically, but they felt like it. The Canadiens, 2 points below them in the same division, they felt so much better last year. They did. Such a breath of fresh air. Love Marty St. Louis as a coach. They let the kids play. They fight. They have fun. This is not a team that's going to be an easy out. This is also a team that's not going to finish the games because they're young and they're not there yet. It's the nature of the business. It's kind of telling that this is basically the only team that Vegas doesn't expect to get 90 points or around there. I think they're unfortunately accurate, mostly because a lot of the East is gunning for a playoff spot, and they're just actively not. So they're going to be the team that everyone's like, we need these 2 points. Can't let that slip. They're the team that's probably going to give away a lot of the 2 points and just let games slip. But you know, their final 5 games last year, it was a 9-3 win, and then they lost 4 straight in OT. 3 of those teams hunting for a wild card spot. This is going to be a tough out, even if the record doesn't reflect it. I really like what's going on in Montreal, unironically. Gonna take the under on the points. Gonna take them to miss the playoffs. I am. I mean, if you're just where are they gonna get the points from though? If you're looking at their schedule, that's the thing. Most of it's probably going to come from the West, but most of the games are going to be against the East. Right, that's the problem when you're looking at who are definitive wins on this schedule, or who are like they win this game 80% of the time. It seems like most of it's the West. That's only how many teams there are? 16, 32 games out of 82. So I'm just going to take the under there. The Vegas seems to think they're going to make a miraculous run through the East, even though they're going to be a wild card team, but I don't. I told you I had one interesting, like, side weird bet.
Oh, yeah.
I did. Sidney Crosby to score his 600th career goal against the Montreal Canadiens.
That's a bet?
It is a bet. He's 8 away. The Penguins play the Canadiens game 4. That's a bit too early, unless he gets like an early hat trick.
Yeah.
Explodes. But then he plays the Canadiens again November 2nd. That's game 13. Very realistic. Okay. He scored 42 and 82 last year, so that's like a goal every other game.
Yeah.
It's right there. It's not supposed to be a good team. Canadians weren't stopping a lot of pucks last year. Just saying, Sidney Crosby could get 600 against this team.
I love that bet, dude. That's awesome. Where'd you find that? DraftKings?
Yeah, it's under season specials, I believe.
That's hilarious. I love that. Yeah, so listen, man, I understand everything that you're saying. Right off the bat, I'm taking the over on the points. I just think 76.5 is low. and I do get what you're saying. I just I don't think, and maybe it's just because I have to see it with my own eyes first, and I just don't trust it. But I don't think that if Ottawa plays Montreal, or if Buffalo plays Montreal, or even if Detroit plays Montreal, I don't think that is automatic win night, right? Like if you're Boston, Toronto, Florida, Rangers, Carolina, like if you're like those teams, then you got to beat Montreal. But if you're those teams that are fighting for those wild card spots, Philadelphia, like that's not guaranteed win night to me. And I do see, because even if they get like 2 or 3 more wins, you're getting over that number, right? So I just think 76.5 is low. If the number was up to, 84.5, 85.5, then maybe I would be more hesitant to take it. But I do like the over 76.5. I also, this is one of my favorite long shots. And like before the season, we'll do a whole long shot favorite props or whatever, future bets or whatever to get before the season starts. I love make the playoffs at plus 750. Do I think they're going to make it necessarily? Maybe not. But like I said, I watched a lot of this Montreal team last year. St. Louis has this team working really hard, and they're always a fight. Montembeault, can he step up his game this year? Primo, can he step up his game this year? I just think that Montreal, they work really hard, they skate really hard, they always compete. Slafkovsky had his breakout year finally last year, and he got paid like it. What will he do? Nick Suzuki, really good player. He broke the top 50 for TSN up here in Canada, always does top 50 players. He broke it for them. He's a phenomenal player. Cole Caulfield, can he take that one more step next year? Newhook, Doc, if Kirby Doc can stay healthy too. Like Kirby Doc is a really good young player who just can't stay healthy. He played, I don't even think he played like full game last year. If he can stay healthy. And the biggest question mark for all of us, Patrick Laine. What are we getting from this guy? If he can even get you 30, 35 goals, that's huge, obviously. So I don't know, man. I think that the downside, like the floor for this team is pretty much what it's been the last couple years. But I think the ceiling is much higher than it's been in a long time. And I'm excited for this team. I like the plus 750 to make it to the playoffs. I think, winning the division, the cup, the East. I mean, at plus 12,000, you might as well throw $10 on it. Just make a donation and see what happens. Who knows? Maybe they make it in the playoffs and Montembeault just stands on his head for 2.5 months. I don't hate it. But I am really looking forward to watching what this team has. So I'll make the playoffs plus 750. I'll leave the rest alone. I do like over 76.5 points too. And we'll see what happens.
Mark, your little line about putting a sprinkle on it, I know we're kind of like done with these teams now. So I think we can take a quick break from hockey. Do you want to guess the odds on my UConn national championship game winner for college football bet? The odds on that?
I have no idea.
It was plus $1 million before I boosted it. I put 24 cents down, and I would win 3,000 if they won the national championship.
So didn't they? So I'm not a real big college basketball guy, although I did ride your boys all the way to a nice payday.
This is football, Dylan.
Oh, football. Oh, okay. So that's different. I was gonna say, didn't they win like 2 years in a row? What am I missing here?
No, definitely football, but that's a lesson for everyone out there. Sprinkle a few on it, see what happens.
That's what we love about sports, man. You never know. Well, listen, speaking about football, we are done with the Atlantic Division team betting previews. Join us again. We'll be back next week, more than likely. Pay attention to the Total Apex Twitter feed, to the to my Twitter feed, and we'll let you know when we are back. Shout out to First Round Collectibles. Use our promo code Sports Addict for 10% off every sports card in the entire First Round Collectibles store. Hockey season's back. Get a little Sidney Crosby card. Maybe you'll find a Mark Messier on there. Who knows? Baseball playoffs ramping up. Get some baseball cards. WWE, there's a new Vince McMahon documentary. Maybe it's getting you hyped up and you want a little WWE sports card. Mike Tyson's on there. You get 10% off with our promo code Sports Addict. Go to firstroundcollectibles.com. That's the number 1, STRoundcollectibles.com. Now, during the regular season for the NHL, we have a best bets segment. If you've been with us for a long time, you know that. Clearly, there is no hockey game on tonight. I mean, this preseason, but I'm degenerate, but I'm not that degenerate. Best bets, Andre, your Giants are home against the Dallas Cowboys. Give me a best bet, bro. What do you got?
I came prepared this
I know
time.
you got something. I didn't prep you for this question, but I know you've already gambled too much money on this game.
I wouldn't say too much, but I might be staring down homelessness if Giants don't win. I like the over in this game. I think you can bet on either running back, that being Devin Singletary, Rico Dowdle, to have big games. A lot of people are going to be on Malik Neighbors. I think he's going to get the attention from Dallas, and that's going to be good for Wan'Dale Robinson. So if you those Giants receivers, being a homer, I did take Giants +6, but no, I really like the running backs. I really like the over in this game.
As an Eagles fan, I hate both of these teams, but I hate the Cowboys more. So I'm rolling with your boys tonight, and I'm looking forward to watching it after, of course, I suffer through another Toronto Maple Leaf preseason game, since that's my job now, and I have to, and that's just the way that it is. Also, if you want to know my thoughts on the Toronto Maple Leafs, which I know all of you love my Toronto Maple Leaf thoughts, hit me up at totalapexsports.com. I'll be following the Leafs all year long. Andre, great stuff. Great stuff today, man. It's great seeing you. We're getting back in the swing of things. Not quite back to a daily show, but hey, man, before you know it, we'll be back.
Yeah. The good old days, but we got 3 more divisions left. Next up is the Metro. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of teams that could or could not do things there, so stay tuned. Great talking to you again, bud.
You too, man. We'll see you next time. Shout out to Apex Sports, First Round Collectibles. We will see you next time.